to build with the boys, we've now got the penultimate Halloween horror. There's only one more after this, I promise. And in this one, we're talking about the Curse of the Chained Oak. So what's that? Well, those of you from the UK will be familiar with Alton Towers, which is a theme park with multiple rides there, thrill rides and things like that. But long before Alton Towers was a theme park, there were the Towers. It was a home, and it was the home of the Earl of Shrewsbury. So Alton Towers itself was a stately home. It's still there. If you go to the theme park, you can still see the remains of the towers, which are quite decrepit at this point. I mean, it's pretty much a shell. But there is a legend that goes with it, because just outside of the towers is the chained oak. And it's an oak tree that was chained up. So all the branches to the oak tree were chained up. Why? Well, as the story goes, the 15th Earl of Shrewsbury was travelling home back to his home of Alton Towers when he was approached, a dark and stormy night, was approached by an old beggar woman who begged for shelter from the cold and for coins. Can you help me? And not only did he say no, he was incredibly rude and dismissed her. And she pointed to the old oak and cursed him. She said, every time a branch falls from that tree, a member of your family will die. The Earl dismissed this and on he went. The storm raged on that night. Back at home, the Earl could hear the thunder and lightning outside, and sure enough, lightning struck the tree, and one of the branches fell from it. He then got the news the next morning that his niece had died in the night, unexpectedly. And this was enough for the Earl. He didn't need to see it happen a second time, so he demanded that the tree be chained up. So the servants went to the tree and chained it completely. So they completely cocooned this thing in chains. So no branch was going to fall from the tree. That's a really weird story. You think, okay. But it exists. So you can still go and see the chained oak now. It exists. And these chains have been wrapped around this tree for so long. I mean, they date this around about 1840, and we'll come into why that's relevant in a minute. But here are some images of the tree. You can see that it's been chained up for so long that the tree itself has actually swallowed the chains. They're now actually protruding from the tree. So you can see there, nature itself has basically just taken the chains. Now, in 2007, a branch fell from the tree, a very large branch fell from the tree. And they contacted the Talbot family. That's who the Earl of Shrewsbury was. Talbot was the family. They contacted the Talbot family to see if has anyone died. No, nobody had died. So had the curse died, or was there ever a curse to begin with? Well, what's interesting about that is the actual chaining of the tree dates to about 1840. Now, the Earl of Shrewsbury was the Earl in 1821. The 15th Earl of Shrewsbury, the 16th Earl of Shrewsbury would have been circa 1840, around about the time that the tree was chained up, and he was known as Good John. And he was well known for his philanthropy and his charity work and supporting the kind of poor. So snubbing an old lady by the side of the road doesn't really fit the bill. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. I mean, because one thing is for public face, and another is, you know, who knows. So there's some dispute about it, but the one thing that can't be disputed is that they wrapped that tree in chains. Why? Because if there is no truth in this myth, why is that tree wrapped in chains? Well, one theory was that when they expanded Alton Towers and the gardens out, the old oak is very prominent, it's on display. So to preserve it, they wrapped it in chains. I've never heard of that. I've never heard of that as being a thing, but and why didn't they do it to any other trees? Why just that one? It's very strange. Something else is weird. Look at this picture. Why are there steps leading up to it? I mean, that's quite odd in itself, is it not? It's very weird. So you may have heard this story before. Where you would have heard it is if you visited Alton Towers, they built an attraction around this. Well, they've massively embellished the story that the Earl takes the branch back to his home and performs all kinds of experiments on it, and that's what the ride's based around, but none of that happened. There is another version of the story where the old lady is standing in the tree and makes a branch fall and kill his son. That never happened either. He had one son that died in infancy, so that's not true. But for some reason they chained that oak tree up. Now, ironically, all those chains are actually making the branches fall. As they've rotted through, and they've rusted through and fallen, they're taking down massive lumps of the branch, and the main core of the tree collapsed as a result of the largest chain rotting through. But it's a very weird story. I mean, it's still celebrated and known today. That whole area of kind of Staffordshire and Alton is filled with weird stories. I mean, there are a lot of very strange, odd stories of highwaymen and hitchhikers and all kinds of things. But they did chain that tree up. And there's no real reason why. No one really knows why. With the exception of this story, there is no explanation as to why they chained that tree up. It just makes no sense. It just doesn't make any sense. It couldn't have been to preserve it. It just couldn't have been. That wouldn't have been a thing. So why did they do it? Was there truth in this myth? Who knows? But you can still see it, and right next to it is the Chained Oak pub. So you can go about the Chained Oak and you can wander down there and take a look at just a creepy, weird weird throwback to our history. But who knows? Was there really a curse or wasn't there? I don't know. But for some reason they chained that tree up. We'll never know why. So that's it for this one. There will be one more Halloween horror, which we will do on Halloween. And until then, stay scared. In a world where you can be anything at all, just be nice. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I will catch you on the next one.